Hello dreamers, welcome back to this new fantastic tutorial on dreams. In today's video we start to see all the most important points for the creation of this movie on Assassin's Creed. There will be a couple of videos for this project. The goal is to make you learn all the steps that are here as best as possible, and above all not to make you fall asleep in a single gigantic tutorial. Today we see how to build the character and animate it here on Dreams. By animation I mean the run. You see here I will guide you step by step to create an animation of this type in Rig, without having to draw every single frame, and how to handle secondary elements that can be, for example, armor that bounces at every step of the character's body. All this first on Procreate for character creation and here on Dreams for animations. Let's get party started! But before starting, I remind you that the file of this project can be found attached to a link below in the description. There will always be also in the next tutorials. Whoever wants to have fun experimenting with the animations can do it. For those who are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe. Hey, you haven't subscribed up yet. What are you waiting for? It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me to continue this fantastic project. I hope you treasure these teachings and that above all they will be useful to you in your projects. Always write in the comments if something is not clear to you and ask me what you want. We'll reach 1000 subscribers before Easter. In the meantime, I thank you. And...
verify it's you.
Before going to see how I built the character on Procreate, I want to show you what you will find inside the Dreams file. The animation we see today from the run is a loop that repeats, and in the group that contains all the elements of the project, that is, character and background. These groups contain the character and the run animation duplicated in the timeline to obtain a looping animation that allows us to make the character run inside the scenario. Animation, you understood? The fundamental thing to create a loop that works well will be that at the starting point and at the ending point of each group the character has the exact same position to avoid misalignments, but we will see this in detail later in the tutorial. But first let's move on to Procreate to understand how to build a character like this. And here we are. As you can see, our samurai has changed a lot. Sayonara! Arigato! But we have to start from here to make you better understand all the steps necessary to get to build a character with a perfect rig animation. But the fantastic thing is that you can create the parts of your characters so that you can transfer them directly to the animation that you will make on Dreams. This will be the basic doll that you can dress as you want. The important thing will be that the drawings of the body parts that you will make on top of these are perfectly over the doll parts to avoid misalignment. As you may have noticed, the character is missing both the leg and the left arm. This is because, as we will see on Dreams, we'll use the limbs in the foreground to create all the parts we need. But let's go and see in detail all the elements that make up our character and why there are these red circles. There are two big groups here on Procreate that contain the character parts. I'm removing the armor for now. As you can see, they are single elements. The two big groups, as I was telling you, contain the upper part of the trunk with head and arms. The group below contains the belt part and the legs. Dividing the groups in this way will give us the possibility on Dreams to create more realistic animations, with the possibility of rotating the trunk. In the groups there are other subgroups, even if for this part the correct division will be done on Dreams, but having some stuff already divided here on Procreate will speed up the workflow. As you can see, obviously all the body parts are on separate levels: torso, neck, head, and all parts of the arm, including the forearm and hand. And for the hand we find both this one with the sword and the hand that will be in the left arm. The same goes for the lower part of the body: foot, calf and leg. Whole body parts separated into layers, but now let's go and see why I inserted these red circles and what they are for. As you can see, they are inserted in the joints between the body parts. And if I zoom in, on the center we find a point. When we move to Dreams, this will become the anchor point from where the rotations will start. But why are they so important? If I hide them for a moment, this part of the forearm follows the red circle. Same thing with the arm underneath. The two semicircles of the body parts then create this circle. With the fulcrum in its center, when I go to rotate the parts of the arm, there will be no edges that will come out of the two shapes. We will see this step better on Dreams, but imagine rotating the forearm on that fulcrum. With the anchor point fixed there, I have the possibility to obtain perfect rotations, avoiding misalignment. This system will be applied to all parts of the body, although, as we will see, where it works best is right here in the limbs. Before moving on to Dreams, let's see how to draw the circle with its fulcrum correctly. On two separate levels I draw the circle. First, always use a color that is in contrast with the body parts below. Here, red. With active snapping I bring the shape perfectly to the center. On a new layer I draw a smaller circle. It doesn't matter if we draw it in the center. We'll move it later with snapping. Once moved to the center, we can join the two levels. This is the circle with its fulcrum that we used to create perfect rotations. I delete this, we already have what we need. Let's import our doll into Dreams. Split screen. Create a new project. And we import the whole project from Procreate. When you import multiple layers and groups into Dreams from Procreate, when you go to convert the drawing into tracks, Dreams will take into account the divisions of groups and subgroups that you have already made in Procreate. Let's set the frame rate for this project to 24 fps. 15 seconds is fine for duration, and I put a darker background so at least you can see something too. I convert the layers to tracks, and as you can see inside the group we can find the division into subgroups as there was on Procreate. This definitely speeds up the workflow, and since there are many levels to animate, having a good organization will be essential to manage everything in the best way. To create the running animation, we first need to set the anchor points in the exact position for all the elements. Let's start with the group that contains the upper part of the body. If I hide the chest, underneath we find the part of the belt. Where we find the circle, in that fulcrum I place the anchor point of the whole part above. Be precise in placing the anchor point exactly in the fulcrum drawn on Procreate. We have thus created the first rotation. With the ability to move the torso independently, the animations that we will develop will be more complex but more realistic. Same procedure and same anchor point also in the lower part of the body. In case we need more complex animations, the two parts will be perfectly connected. As you can see, from here we can develop another animation, but combined with animation of the upper body, we can create really interesting things. Next step, we are going to arrange the anchor points in the other parts of the body. We start from the upper part. We have already created a group containing the forearm and the hands on Procreate, and we find it here. I have to make a group that contains this part and the arm, so that I can move everything together. All the parts of the arm are in one group. I'm hiding the armature for now, we'll see how to animate it later. But let's move on to positioning the anchor points in the exact spot. In the main group, the anchor point here at the shoulder height. So we get this rotation. In the forearm group, we place the anchor point here at the height of the elbow. This is the rotation we can do. Even dislocate the forearm. How to see if we do a good job of drawing on Procreate and put the anchor points in the right place, the rotations will be perfect, without showing edges that come out of the shapes. If we enter the forearm group, we'll still have to fix the anchor point in the end. As we saw on Procreate, we find two hands, one with the sword and one without, and as we will see later, we need both, but in the meantime we fix the anchor point in the wrist for both. Ok, both have the anchor point now, and these are the rotations. Now I can duplicate the whole group and bring it behind the chest. The copy will become the left arm of the doll. We move it to the right and try to position it at the height of the left shoulder. We also rotate it a little. And remember to also place it behind the chest level. I'll move it back a little more and go remove the sword level here, since our samurai doesn't know the two sword technique yet. But with our technique we have two perfectly rotatable arms, after working with the anchor points of a single group. Now let's fix the anchor points in the legs, but first I rotate the arms a little in this way, so as not to cover too much of the lower part. I also carry the sword a little towards the outside. I'll delete this one, ok. I was forgetting about the head. Here too I'll fix the anchor point. Even at the base of the head we find the red circle that corresponds to the shape of the neck. Let's move the anchor point in the fulcrum of this circle. We'll make the head do small rotations, otherwise, as you can see, there is a misalignment with the shape of the neck. Small rotations that will be sufficient for the final animation. Now we have all the anchor points in the upper part of the body. Let's see the legs and then we can move on to animating our doll. In the meantime, let's find the main group of the leg and place the anchor point here at the height of the pelvis. In the Memphis. Ok, now we can move on with the other anchor points. Inside the leg group, we make a new subgroup that contains the foot and the calf. Ok, now edit the anchor point. Now we can do this rotation. We just need to fix the anchor point on the foot. Okay, here we are. I would say that for the moment we are good as anchor points. Maybe we still need something, but we will see it later. Here too we can duplicate the main group of the leg to create the left leg. I move it a little more to the right and a little more up for a correct perspective. And vamos! The last anchor point we fix is in the wall main group and we fix it here at the height of the pelvis. This is because, as we will see, to make the running animation our character will have to have his body rotated approximately in this position. But now we are missing the ground where the doll's feet can rest. We will insert a very simple one. It will also serve as a reference for the animation that we'll create. Also because there are some main points that will be important to respect for a good result. It's a reference and fundamentally. Let's create a rectangle with any color and bring it under the doll group. Let's move to this point. Okay. Now we can officially move on to the animations. For the complete running cycle we only need 12 frames. So in this case, where the frame rate is set to 24 fps, half a second contains the complete cycle. Here we have 13 frames, but as we will see at the end, we'll cut the 13th. We only need it is a reference to give the correct timing to the animation cycle. If any of you know the 12 principles of animation in a running cycle, you need to know some reference points. They are defined as keyframes of the points of rather of the positions that the character must have. For example, in certain points of the animation. In a complete running cycle, we start from the rightmost character, the right leg forward and left back, and the body is projected upwards. Suspension phase. Down phase, the right foot has a quick contact with the ground and the left leg rotates forward. The body suffers the recoil and rotates downwards. Next, suspension phase as at the beginning but with legs and arms inverted. A new down phase, and again suspension phase where the character must be in the same position as at the beginning. First thing, I cut the group at frame 13. We need to recreate the phases seen before with the Dreams movement tool. On the main group, I add the frame at the beginning and rotate the body in this position. In the upper body part group, I add a move tool keyframe at the beginning and at the end. At the beginning I rotate the torso like this. Then we'll give precise values to avoid overlay complicated numbers like 17854. I gave 20 as rotation. I'm going to set this value also in the final keyframe. Okay, great. Now let's go rotate the legs. We bring the right leg forward. Now let's give a precise value, like 60. Okay. Add a keyframe at the end. The position will have to be the same. How elegant this doll is! The left leg instead we rotate from the knee down. But before continuing, I lower the wall doll group a bit. I want this foot to be closer to the ground. Also remember the final keyframe will have to have the same position. Let's move on to the rotation of the calf of the left leg. Here too we rotate the group at the beginning and at the end. As a value we set -75, ok, and at the end. Now we can create the first animation in the middle of the cycle. As we saw before, there is the second phase of suspension, with the legs that are in reversed position compared to the beginning and the end. Right leg and knee will have to rotate backwards. Has a value -25 and we have the first rotation. To be precise, let's set the rotation value at the beginning and at the end -25 also for the left leg. And in the center of the timeline we set the initial rotation value that the right leg has. The value is 60, set here, ok. We just need to modify the rotation of the calf. Here at the center of the timeline the rotation must return to 0. Ok. Let's go back to the right leg and set the calf rotation value here too, this time in the center of the run cycle. The value is -75 for the left leg, we set the same one. Ok, great, now we can proceed with the other animations. To make the animation realistic, at this point where the right foot starts to touch the ground, there will be the down phase. Even the upper body part, as we'll see, rotates downwards to cushion the blow. But let's start by taking a wall main group and at this point add the keyframe. What we are interested in is modifying the height from the ground, so let's work on the value of y. Let's put all the keyframes we need and especially in the center where there will be the second phase of the suspension. The body will have to return upwards. This is the animation we need. By moving the whole body down in the down phase, the body touches the ground for an instant to cushion the fall. Same movement that the body also performs in the second down phase. Before adding the body rotation, I want to create the animations on the arms too. I directly set the final keyframe and in the center of the cycle I rotate the arm forward. Like this. Obviously I'm going to do the same thing with the left arm too. Remember to set the same rotation value at the beginning and at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, here is our little soldier. To make the movement more fluid, I also add the rotation of the forearms. When the arm is forward, I want to rotate it towards the body, to be clear for a less rigid movement. With the right arm, I rotate it to the center of the animation cycle. I also add a rotation in the end. Also in the left arm I add the rotation of the forearm, which this time will be at the beginning and at the end of the cycle, so be careful to set the same value. 80 at the beginning, in the center I set 40 and 80 at the end. The animation is starting to feel less stiff, but we still have to work on it a bit more. Now we can go back to the main group that contains the torso. In the down phase, let's add a rotation downwards. Let's set a keyframe also in the center. The body will have to rotate upwards again in the suspension phase. Also add a rotation in the second down phase. The animation begins to bring our doll to life. Now I add other details such as a rotation of the head, here too in correspondence with the down and suspension phases. It doesn't matter at this point how much you rotate the keyframes in the center, but remember that the first and the last ones must have the same value. In the center of the cycle I rotate in reverse. I want the head to go back a little to better give an idea of the suspension phase at this point. In the down phase instead I rotate a little more downwards. Ok, great, the final version is still near. Another detail we are going to work on are the feet. I will rotate them a little in the suspension phase. Also here, always remember that the rotation must be the same at the beginning and at the end. 10 at the beginning. In the central part of the timeline, -30. And at the end, 10. Ok. We will do the same work with the left foot, obviously. And here the result. The animation of the run cycle is complete. We just need to add the secondary animations on the armor that we are going to see immediately. The armor pieces that cover the figs are inside the lower body group but must remain outside the legs group. With the distortion tool we start to put keyframes starting from the beginning, the second one corresponding to the down phase. I add the third one at this point. At this point I'm going to distort the shape of the armor like this. And this is the result. What I added is a secondary animation that bounces the armor in the down phase of the run cycle. Physics plays a fundamental role in this phase and makes the animation even more realistic and organic. I also add this animation in the next step of the down phase. And here the result. Let's copy and paste this layer at the bottom. I invert and place here. Little rotation. I add a HSB filter to shade it. And vamos! Same work also for the animation of the armor that covers the arms. Let's move on, and with the next step we'll see how to duplicate the whole group in the timeline to make the character run longer in the scene. Do you remember that a cycle must be 12 frames? Because the first and the last must be the same. So I'm going to cut the last frame at the end. Now I duplicate the group. The second group will start right with the first frame. which will also be the last for the previous group. Now I repeat the operation a few times. This way the loop animation will be perfect and fluid, without any points where there is a blocking moment. We can then group all the groups and create a single group. With the performance tool, for example, we can move or zoom the character in this way, getting animations like this, but we can also do camera scrolling. But in the next tutorial we will go into more detail on this aspect. For now it's better to stop here. Today too a fantastic tutorial on the animation of running in rig has ended. You can find the file of this short below in the description, along with the work we did together, and above all the Procreate file that will serve as a starting point for your projects. We will continue in the next few weeks to discover all the animations I have made here. As always, if something is not clear to you, ask me in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and